morning. You're looking at a brand, right? The way I talk, the way I'm dressed, the way I walk, thanks to an old hockey injury. What I have to say this morning, you're thinking to yourselves, what's in store for the next 3 hours listening to this guy? Wait. Right? Is there going to be some information here that I can use as a registered dietitian, as a student, as someone pursuing a career in this important market? So if you're looking at a brand, because we don't know each other yet, I'm not much of a person to those of you I haven't met, I'm a brand. If you're looking at a brand, then guess what? I'm looking out at brands. All of you are smiling faces today. Just as you walk down a grocery store, if I don't know you, if we haven't had the reason to interact yet, if I don't understand what kind of value you can bring to me in a conversation or an interaction, then you're a brand. Smiling faces this morning. Make up your brand. What makes you different? What makes you stand out? And most importantly for your industry, what makes people like me, Joe Consumer, who know very little about nutrition, about wellness, what makes me want to trust that your judgment, your insights, your feedback, and your guidance is more important than the people that maybe I saw on one of the news channels this morning, trading across the TV, exploiting themselves as nutritionists and experts in what you do. How do you, in a few minutes, make that kind of impression on me, like I hope to make on you over the next little bit of time here, so that you can show the value that you bring to differentiate yourselves from all of the clutter that's out there in the marketplace, clouding the important issue of nutrition, clouding the important issue of wellness. So let's step back and take a look at some of the most recognizable brands in the world. What comes to mind when you see this icon? Apple. Okay, that was the easy answer. What else? What's behind this logo? What do you think of? Holler loud. I've been to a lot of concert and NASCAR races. iPhone. Who knew we needed an iPhone, right? Now how do we live without a smartphone, even if it isn't an iPhone? What else? Mac computers. What else?
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs. Interesting. What else? One more. You have one more in you. Technology. Good quality. Look how polite she was. She raised her hand. Good quality. Some would say costs more, but you do get value in that brand. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Mickey Mouse ears. What comes to mind when you see this logo? Fun. Disneyland / Disney World. Family. Family. What else? Movies. Frozen. A lot of you have probably seen that more times than you care to admit. What else? Disney. Walt. We talked about Steve Jobs, we talked about Walt Disney. Okay, now you might ask, why does this guy show a slide like this? What he knows, he's speaking to a group of predominantly female audience. Well, let me tell you. Women is the fastest growing market segment of Harley. Harley Davidson. Okay, but more importantly, what do you think of when you see this? They call it the bar and shield. Either you own one or maybe have been on one or at least have heard them rumbling by. What do you think of when you see Harley Davidson? Motorcycles.
Black leather.
Black leather. Black leather. What else? Sturgis. Yeah, Sturgis. What else? Do-rag? Do-rag. For those of you not familiar, do-rag is that bandana that Harley riders tie around their necks. I'm sorry, around their heads. To wear under their... Okay. Now you might ask, why does this guy show this slide to this group of people? You will learn why in a little bit. Right? But this is an important brand. I'm just showing the most recognizable brands in the world, and this happens to be one of them. So what comes to mind, you probably know more about this brand than some of the others that I've shown. But what comes to mind when you see this, the golden arches? Fast food. Chicken nuggets. Ronald McDonald. Good coffee. Very long lines. Very long lines. Yogurt parfait. See? Something healthy. Dollar menu. Lots of money. Interesting, lots of money. Happy Meals. It's kind of funny how this discussion keeps going on this one, right? Okay, let's move a little closer to home. What comes to mind when you see this logo? IAND. Us. Professionals. Somebody over here? Advocate. Quality. Qualified. Networking. Experts. What else? Resources. Okay, we'll talk more about this brand in a little bit. Now, the brand called me, the brand called you. You don't have to shout out, but I want you to think a little bit about your brand. Your brand doesn't need to compete with those top 4 most recognizable logos, icons, brand symbols in the world. But yet you do need to compete. We are all selling something every time we're out there talking to people about nutrition, about wellness, about health. Think about and maybe jot yourself some notes. And by the way, if you didn't get a chance to download the 3-page handout that's available on the website for this session, feel free to do so after the session. You'll a few notes in there that you can that will help you remember what went on during this time this morning. But think a little bit about, jot some notes down about the most important brand in this room, which is your individual brand. Because not only is it your skills, your knowledge, resources, your advocacy, all of the things you just mentioned, but it's also your own personal style and your brand that makes you different, that makes people want to learn from you and work with you and network with you and all of those other attributes that we mentioned. All right, real quick marketing history lesson. Don't raise your hand if you remember S&H green stamps. I'll just go ahead and let you off the hook and say I remember S&H green stamps. And for those of you in the room who are looking and wonder what the heck is this, I can say that over 100 years ago, the first marketing program was put in place by a company called Sperry and Hutchinson in the late 1800s. They said, if you buy from us, we will give you back stamps in return. Buy X amount from us, you get so many stamps, and so on and so forth. Collect those stamps in booklets and turn those booklets into local merchandising facilities. I can't remember exactly, redemption centers, that's what they call them, redemption centers. And then you could earn some merchandise and other awards based on the fact that you interacted with a brand or brands over a length of time. Okay? S&H green stamps. The first time people said we're going to try to grow our brand by connecting with consumers in, let's call it maybe a bribe. Do this, get that. Fast forward 1981, the first loyalty program. American Airlines started their A Advantage program. We're all familiar with the concept now. At the time it was relatively new. If you fly American Airlines flights, you get in return miles. You use those miles for upgrades and other flights and so on and so forth. Now, look in your purses, your wallets, in your pockets, and you probably all have card or cards with points-based programs attached to them. Another way for brands to grow their image in a marketplace by offering other kinds of gimmicks to get you to interact with them. In 1961, a new concept was born called direct marketing. This is the concept that if you personalize a message and send it out in the mail, that you would have stronger engagement with your customers. That devolved into, when you get home tonight and check your snail mail inbox, what will you have? Junk mail. Direct marketing is still a viable marketing option, but less and less important every day. Your inbox on your computer, on your smartphone will also be cluttered. We call that what? Spam. I don't know what we're going to call it as soon as it hits our smartphones in the form of text messaging. That's coming if it hasn't already to your phone. I don't know if we'll call that spam as well or if we need a new name for it. That will be the next attempt at marketers to reach out to you to try to get you to interact with them. The reason I bring up this real quick history lesson is that for 15 years of my career, I helped mainly Fortune 500 companies do marketing, loyalty programs, direct marketing programs, and consumer promotions. Then I met this woman. Meet Cynthia. Cynthia is a bank teller at a local bank branch. And one Saturday morning, I was driving through the drive-thru to cash an expense check. Cynthia happened to be the person behind the glass at the drive-thru. And as I sent the information through, she looked up my account and that information and said, you know, Dan, I see that you have a mortgage with our bank, you have a credit card. She started a mild sales pitch to say, there are some things we can do to help you. I had my marketing blinkers on and didn't pay much attention and said, you know what, I'm not interested now, but if you send out the information, I'll take a look at it. When I got home that night and saw what Cynthia had sent out to me, it was her card, paper clipped to a brochure. And when I flipped her card over, it was a handwritten message. I don't know when the last time you received a handwritten message was, but it makes an impact in this world of high tech and in this world of messaging clutter. Someone taking the time to write a handwritten note for business purposes becomes pretty meaningful, doesn't it? She said on the back of the card, if you're interested in any of these services, please give me a call, Cynthia. Not a loan officer, not a mortgage banker, the teller at the drive-thru in this bank. This bank that happened to be a client of ours, a bank that had spent millions of dollars marketing, direct marketing, consumer promotions, and all that kind of stuff. And it hit me. It hit me pretty hard when I got home that night. I had what I'll call an epiphany, okay? Not in the religious sense, and I don't get many of these big ideas, so I asked my wife, would you take a picture of me? Because I think I have a big idea. And I want to capture it, all right? I know this is a large picture of me awfully early in the morning, so I'll get it off the screen and say to you, here's the idea. Is that true customer engagement, notice I don't say loyalty, we hear a lot about loyalty programs. You're not going to get loyalty from those you do business with. You get loyalty from friends. You might get loyalty from your children, your pets. You can't expect loyalty from customers. It's still an interaction, and you're only as good as that value that you provide. And we're talking about business settings now, right? Loyalty is an overused term. I like to say engagement. So true customer engagement is driven by people who are conscious of the brand and they are themselves engaged. You know when you interact with somebody who is interested in what they're doing and more importantly interested in helping you, and you know when somebody is offering lip service and that is it. Cynthia took the time to write a handwritten note. Now, granted, she was probably trained on the concept, very well trained, but took the time to write a handwritten note and made an impact on me. This is 2006. I put a pretty good job to be able to work with organizations to say, listen, all of the money that you're spending on advertising, marketing, branding, Super Bowl commercials, I don't care what it is It's always at the mercy of your people. Your people are your brand. Relationships make make brands. Too often we think of those logos, and we think of billboards, and we think of advertisements as brand. The internet has exploded all of that. We now can get behind the scenes of every brand. If we don't know about a brand from the inside based on the internet, well, employees are out there blogging, tweeting, talking about the brands that they work for, right? The curtain has been removed. It's a transparent world thanks to the internet. And brands can no longer be a facade, a nice ad, a nice building, and all of that. Brands are built on relationships that people have with others. True customer engagement is driven by brand-conscious people who are themselves engaged. That's a little bit of marketing speak, so really what I'm saying is it's about the people. That's what brands are about. You know that, but it's good to hear it again and have it reiterated. So I coined the term a Brandtender. I thought this was a prime example. I haven't met Julie, but she looks like an awesome Brandtender to me, right? A Brandtender is somebody who tends to a brand. It might be your own brand if you're a consultant or work for yourself. It might be your brand within the within the confines of a larger brand in an organization that you work for. But you are responsible for tending to that brand and growing that brand. A brand cannot grow on its own without people. And then I like to say that you're tendering that brand just like currency. Every time you meet or interact with somebody, it's just like passing them a $1 bill and hopefully receiving something in return. You're tendering that brand at every possible interaction. If you remember that, you'll try to make every interaction a little bit stronger, maybe a little bit tighter if you haven't met a person before, as far as what it is you do and the value that you can provide. So let's go back to those icons. Somebody said that Steve Jobs was a representative of Apple, or came to mind when we talked about Apple. So if we look at the people side of those most recognizable brands in the world, guess who pops up very quickly? Steve Jobs. Now, how long will Apple continue to thrive and to grow without him? I guess time will tell. I heard him referred to a couple months ago as the Michelangelo of our times. He's the Michelangelo of our lifetime. Again, time will tell. But think of the impact that he has made on all of us. And I say he because he drove that culture. I wouldn't recommend Steve Jobs' management style. Very hard on people and a very difficult person to work for. I would recommend his leadership and visionary skills and what he brought not only to that company, but also to consumers who never even thought we would need one device with all of this stuff on it. Once we had it, it's going to be very tough for us to live without it. Now, I show a picture of him next to one of the people who work in an Apple store. Who's been to an Apple store? What did you think of that experience? Or experiences if you visited frequently. What was it like in an Apple store? Excellent customer service. What else?
Fun and engaging.
Fun and engaging. Isn't that incredible? Walk into a retail environment and it's fun and engaging when you're talking about technology, right? No cash registers in sight. People walking around, you can touch and feel all of the products. He reinvented the retail environment by saying to his analysts and economists, we're going to take personal computers to retail. Those analysts and economists said, it's not going to work, Steve. IBM tried it, Gateway tried it, others have tried it and failed. You can't take personal computing to retail. Well, Steve Jobs said, here's how we're going to do this. We're not going to sell anything. When I visited an Apple store, I read so much about the Apple training. I ran into a gentleman, not literally ran into a gentleman, but I came across a gentleman who had only been working at that store for 6 months. And I said, what has the training been like? What have you learned? He said, well, for the first 3 months, I couldn't talk to any customers. I had to walk around with my buddy in the store. And she helped me understand that we're not here to sell anything. And if we do blatantly sell things, our manager talks to us after hours. So I thought, well, I read that this was the case, but how often does that always become a reality, especially in a retail environment? It's sell, sell, sell. Steve Jobs understood that if you understand what a customer or prospect wants to use, a computer, a phone, an iPad, whatever it happens to be, if you understand what they want to use that for, and just help them understand how this device might help them, they will walk out with armloads of goodies. He was told that Apple wouldn't work at retail. Now on Fifth Avenue, if you've ever had a chance to see the store, it's just a cube, a big glass cube with an Apple logo etched in it, and you walk down the stairs. On Fifth Avenue, it is now the largest per square foot revenue generating retailer. Tiffany's, Neiman Marcus, some pretty heavy hitters are on that same street. Steve Jobs said, how are we going to succeed in retail? By not selling anything, by offering value. Finding out what the needs are and addressing those needs versus saying, here are all of the features of our products. Aren't they great? Disney. If you go to work for Disney, you're not called an employee, you're called what? Cast member. You're called a cast member. The people who visit the theme parks are called guests or the audience. You are a cast member because Disney in its training, and some of you have probably experienced that training or heard about it, is very adamant about people come here for the experience, for the memories, the things that they cannot recreate. Oh, by the way, they'll pay nearly $100 for a ticket. They'll leave with a lot of stuff, and they'll probably watch Frozen 20 times or 30 times because their children will demand that happen. Right? It's about the experience and that interaction, and they know that these people are in those parks for those memories and not for just the Disney logo or the Disney brand. Now Harley, I bring that up for a few reasons. First of all, I wanted to share with you the growing female demographic of Harley. Second of all, if you ever have a chance to visit the Harley Museum, and I don't ride Harleys myself, but I found it fascinating. 3 buildings in Milwaukee with virtually every bike since 1903. The neatest thing that I saw, and what's relevant for our conversation this morning, is that in the middle of the middle building, in other words, center stage at this museum, behind glass is what Harley calls a full dresser. It has a lot of fiberglass on it, so it's a big bike. The scribbles that you see are signatures of 6,250 employees. Everybody who works at Harley has had a chance to sign this bike. It's a testament to the employees. And Harley, on a plaque on the front of the glass that this bike is behind, it says something to the effect of, yes, we know that our bikes are whatever, strong, solid, rugged, mythical, whatever it happens to be, but we realize it's the people who come to work every day and work on the assembly line or work in the retail outlets or whatever it happens to be that makes Harley what it is. It's about our people. It isn't about the chrome, it isn't about the tires, it isn't about the fiberglass. It's about the people. A reminder to all of you, if you lead a team or if you work in a larger group environment, take time to recognize the contributions of your employees publicly and let employees and your clients and customers know how important the people are and what they contribute are to your brand. McDonald's. The word I was looking for I didn't hear was consistency. And the reason that I show that slide and receive rolled eyes whenever I talk to a group like you, and I endure that because I want to get across the point that strong brands have the necessary ingredient of consistency. If I talk to you right after this session for a few minutes, and then I talk to you a couple weeks later about maybe a different topic, will I see a consistency in your brand and how you approach your industry and the advice that you give? Do I see consistency there? So I show McDonald's because if you order a hamburger in Owatonna, Minnesota, where I grew up, it should taste pretty similar. Another Owatonna person? Owatonna, as we call it. If you order a hamburger there, it should taste pretty similar to a hamburger that you might order in Beijing, right? It's consistency. That's why people migrate to McDonald's, is because they know what they're getting. Do people know what they're getting from you every time they interact with you? Are you consistent? Not only in your message, but in your delivery of that message. If I talk to you in 2 minutes afterwards, will I understand what you do, how you do it, what value you provide to people when you offer advice and advocacy? It's about the people, again, and how you interact consistently. So, think a little bit about what your brand offers, what it is you sell. A lot of people will tell me we don't really sell anything. We advocate, we consult, I say that sounds great, you're selling something. You're a brand, you're selling something. You have competition. You want to make a difference. You need to search for what makes you different. And you are indeed selling something. You need to convince me, and you need to convince consumers that you understand nutrition. And I can't iterate enough in your industry more than any other that I work with. The clutter is amazing out there. The myths are amazing out there. You're up against a lot. How does your brand stick out and make a difference? Who's seen this woman? Let me introduce you to Vani Hari. All right? This is what you're up against in the marketplace. If you have somebody like me, who's not an expert in nutrition and doesn't understand health, wellness, and nutrition very well, but understands that he wants to live a better and longer life, meet your competition. She's called the Food Babe. Now let me give you a few stats on this woman. She's a 35-year-old former banking consultant turned food activist. Okay? Majored in computer science in college. Built an online reputation for calling out companies for using ingredients she deems harmful. Ooh, if it sounds bad, it must be. Stephen Novella, Yale School of Medicine neurologist, says Hari distorts the facts by making claims about ominous-sounding yet little-used additives to generate controversy and draw eyeballs to her site. It's working. In July, foodbabe.com had almost 800,000 unique visitors. I shared this with General Mills, the sponsor of my presentation this morning. General Mills didn't have 800,000 unique visitors in July. She has appeared on, surprise, Good Morning America, The Dr. Oz Show, and many others. Her scientific background is non-existent, says Joe Schwartz from the Office for Science and Society at McGill University in Montreal. Meet your competition. How do you combat that when she gets online and blogs? She has prompted Subway to change ingredients. She has prompted Kraft Food to change perfectly fine and what you would probably consider healthy, or at least non-detrimental ingredients. They've changed because of her clutter in the marketplace. This is your competition. This is your competition. You win by knowledge, resources, scientific, all that stuff. It's boring, isn't it? It's not as sexy and as glamorous. It's boring, but it's the truth. The internet, Dr. Google, and Dr. Oz and all these other shows are not helping your cause at all. Branding is so important for you every day. So you need to know, if you don't have the handout in front of you, jot this down. I know what my brand stands for, and I know what makes me different. You could all have the exact same message, but that wouldn't really work because you all have a different and distinct personality and style. You can have a similar message. You need to convey that in a way that is compelling to those you interact with. I know what my brand stands for and what makes me different from the competition. Now I can say that this line or these questions or understanding these attributes about yourself, they are the same as what corporations go through when they brand themselves. So if I'm mixing back and forth here a little bit about how companies brand and organizations brand, if you work in a larger organization or lead a team, take this into consideration for organizational branding. If you work on your own or in a smaller group, this is good for personal branding. They need to be the same. This is how strong brands and those most recognizable icons got to where they are. I know what I stand for and I know what makes me different. The reason this is important is because research says, Gallup research says that if companies understand and can convey their brand message to their employees, those companies grow 2.5 times faster. There's no reason to believe that wouldn't apply also to our own personal brands. Those companies are 12% more profitable. They're 18% more productive. And here's the kicker, the last one. Employees are less likely to leave because they understand what the mission of the organization is. You're passionate about what you do, right? That doesn't always mean everyone in an organization is passionate about their position in a group. Organizations grow faster, are more profitable, and people are more engaged if they understand, okay, I know what we stand for, and I know what makes us different. If you do not know that in your group or in your organization, when you go back to the office, bring it up to somebody and say, listen, we need to center ourselves and we need to determine what it is. Let's go back to that back of a napkin message that started all of this and determine what our brand is and what makes us different. It's what I call the people difference. This is a great photo that Allison shared with me of members of this group having a lot of fun. This is a differentiator. The people, the personalities are a differentiator for this organization, right? I haven't met many of the people in this photo, a few of them, but I know that that's a group that's engaged and interested and fun and dynamic. Okay, so here's how you build a strong brand. And again, these dynamics work the same for companies as they do for individuals. How you grow a strong brand. First of all, you need to tell the story. What is the story? What is the story you want to tell? A lot of times, because you know so much and you've learned so much, it's hard to boil that down into a few understandable, simple sentences so the layperson can understand it. That's the difficult part. There are tons of good things that you can do and a great story that you can tell. But is it decipherable? Is it easy to grasp and understand? And is it compelling? So what do you stand for and what separates you from the competition? And you have competition. If it's not the food babe, then it's somebody else. How you create a brand statement. This is a real fun exercise that you can do over the course of a couple evenings at home. The first thing you need to realize is a brand statement is a reflection of you. Remember what I said about transparency? Remember what I said about the internet? Remember what I said about branding in general? Is that it is about you, and you can't hide behind a facade and create a brand. You might be able to get away with it on Facebook, but you can't create a brand that's expected to bring value to others unless that brand is true and you're true to that brand. It needs to be brief. I show a picture here of Mark Twain because he was asked to write an article in 2 weeks' time. But the publisher said, you know what, it only needs to be a 2-page article. Mark Twain famously replied, I can write a 2-page article in 2 months. I can write you a 20-page article in 2 weeks. His point is that it's way easier to create a long, lengthy, here's everything that I do. That's easy. It's much harder to hone that down into a few sentences or a paragraph. This is what I do, this is what I stand for, this is what makes me different. It's very difficult. You will start with sheets of paper. Maybe you work for an organization that has pages and pages of mission, vision, values. Somewhere along the line, somebody in strategic planning said, this year we're going to work on our mission, vision, values. They develop it, they ask all employees to post it in their offices or their cubes. Done. Great, we have a mission, vision, values, right? Do you know them? Do you remember them? Do you understand them? take all of that information and build a strong paragraph. And you don't need to recite it and rehearse it and say it completely. You need to understand the essence of it and be able to communicate it in your style. And it needs to be written in simple language, especially in what you do, because there are so many acronyms and there are so many important but complicated terms and phrases. How do you make it simple for the people that need to understand? People in public policy, people in public office, business people, people in the healthcare industry, Joe, consumer. How do you make it simple for us? This is a brand statement I thought I would share with you from another Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. It's Wisconsin, actually. And I wanted to share this with you just to read through it real quickly, because this was an exercise that organization went through over about 3 months' time. We had meetings every couple of weeks to gain consensus, to get some feedback from not only the people in the organization, but outside of the organization. Came up with this, and I urge you to not only read through this wording, but steal any of it. They would welcome that, because some of it may apply to you, and if they worked a long time on the wording, it's perfectly okay for you to adapt that. These are the words and the phrases they thought were most important. Are they perfect? No. Will they evolve? Yes. But is it the first time this organization has had a brand statement and its members have been able to beg, borrow, and steal from this statement to help create their own? It's perfect for them. On the bottom of the handout, by the way, is my email address, my phone number. If you have any other questions about today or want to talk or have any other anecdotes, call me anytime. But as importantly, if you want some of this information, just track me down via email and send me an email, and I can send you the slides and this information, okay? I know that I don't expect you to write all of this down right now. I use it for demonstration purposes. Okay, so let's look at Iowa. This was stolen off the website by me. And it's a part of your president, Lori's message. And I thought, okay, these are, notice I use the word ingredients. I thought that was kind of cool for a session like today. Maybe you don't find it as funny as I did. These are brand ingredients for you to use. These are the words that were carefully chosen by Lori, your president, to say these are things that we're about, these are things we want to work on, these are some of our priorities for the coming year. Will they change? Yes, they will. Will they evolve? Yes. But these are things that you can look at. We need to market dietitians as the go-to nutrition professionals. Market yourselves. Nobody can do that but you. Communicate the benefit of working together to improve the health of our communities. All right? If dietetics is your profession, policy should be your passion. This, I think, is the national mantra that Lori conveyed in her statement, to say, if it's your profession, then policy is everything. I haven't heard, but there were 2 votes you probably heard about last night in Oregon and Colorado on GMOs, right? Anybody hear how those came out? It's a mess out there. Think about if states have to label, think about if states are changing labeling requirements per state. What it does to your industry, to manufacturers, to consumers. It only adds to it. Policy is so important. Healthcare, what's happening there, right? If dietetics is your profession, policy should be your passion. So understand what the policies are. Understand what the vote totals are from last night in these 2 states and why they ended up that way and what might happen because of those. Becoming involved in policy work at local, state, and national levels is paramount in moving our profession forward and makes our voices heard and does more to improve the nutrition landscape. Okay? So these are things to think about. These are some guiding principles as you create your brand statement. And then, of course, you add to that what you bring to it from a personality, communication level. There's a website out there called Wordle.net. I'm in no way, shape, or form affiliated with this site. It's a free site. I use this a lot with clients to say, go out there, it's Wordle.net, and if you want to build a brand statement for yourself or for a team, What you do is you come up with the most important words and phrases, and you can weight them, W-E-I-G-H-T, weight them according to their priority. Wordle spits them out in all kinds of fun formats like this, based on priority. So the larger the words, the more important they are to your brand. It's a very fun visual way to involve people in building a brand, or for yourself to say, okay, these are the most important things that I stand for. I can build a brand statement from there, but visually, you can look at what your brand is all about. It's a great visual way to look at that. So Lori, as I mentioned earlier, has challenged Iowa dietitians to work with IAND to increase our exposure. Together, we'll continue to improve the health of our communities through nutrition, counseling, education, and involvement in public policy. So this is a challenge to you in this room today from Lori to say these are the things that we need to work on as a group this year. You'll be talking more about them throughout the day today, but this is important. If you want to have a brand statement, if you want to build that consistency, wouldn't it be nice if everyone in this room had this similar message? So if I talk to you individually afterwards, I don't get a completely different set of what I stand for, what makes me different, than I would from people maybe on this side of the room. That consistency in some of the language and some of the words will give you power as a brand because people will hear those consistent messages when they talk to people who are the people who understand this industry and are the experts in it, undisputed experts in it. Zappos, has anybody done business with Zappos? What's your experience been like? It's rare that I hear not so good, right? The reason that Zappos offers such a strong customer experience is because of their culture. If you go to work for Zappos, and in the first month or so, you don't think you're a very good fit, well, the odds are that some people around you may not think you're that great of a fit either. Zappos will pay you $2,000 to leave. That's how important those personalities and these brands are to that organization. They have truly taken the people are your brand and the Brandtender concept as far as you can take it, which is to say, our culture is everything. We just sell shoes and apparel and accessories and stuff that people can get anywhere for about the same prices that people can get anywhere. What makes us so different? Our policies, for one thing, return policies and our interaction. It's the people. If you don't like it here, leave, we'll pay you, because we need good people who are engaged in our culture. We hire people for what they know. It's easy to look on a resume and see what people know and what their experience is. We hire people for what they know. We fire them for who they are. For some reason, they don't fit. Even though they have the experience and the skills and the knowledge, they don't fit in what we're trying to accomplish as a brand. Culture eats strategy for breakfast every day. You can strategize and plan and plot. Culture is everything. And you cannot hide your culture anymore. Again, the internet. Your culture is online, 24/7. Your culture is online and on display. Okay, so we talked first of all about building a strong brand, tell the story, right? Second, consistency. Back to that Golden Arches brand. Everything you say and do is a commercial for your brand. If I interact with you and I've never met you before, we sit next to each other at a concert, and I say, what do you do? And you tell me. And if I haven't heard of that industry or maybe that company, everything you say and do during that concert is a reflection of that company in my mind and that brand. Not only of you personally, but of what you do. Everything you say and do is a commercial for your brand, and I can't think of a better example than ad nauseum, we've seen Flo. The only thing that would be better is if Flo was an actual employee of Progressive, which she isn't. She's a hired gun from LA. But they're at least understanding, Progressive is, that, hey, people need to see a face. We want to personify the brand. There is no such thing as a Progressive store. Progressive is an online interaction. Consumers said, wait a minute, I don't want to have an online interaction. I need I need my insurance agent, and I need hand-holding and phone calling and all that good stuff. They said, hey, we're going to put a face to our brand. And they did. They personified it. Some companies since then, Toyota now has adapted this. Some companies have taken it to the level of their actual employees, or their faces in their commercials and in their brands. So think about flow. Everything you say and do is a commercial for your brand. I say, who needs flow? When you have a couple of characters like this in this organization, right? Everything you say and do is a commercial for your brand. All right, whenever you interact with someone, I have clients listed on here, but whenever you as a brand tender for your brand, for your expertise, interacts with anyone, you have what I call a moment of impression. On your handout, it talks about the positive moments of impression and the negative moments of impression. Let's just talk about the positive today, right? It's a nice day out, and we'll keep to that. The first rung, that first moment of impression that you have with people, we always say you only have one time to make a first moment of impression, or first impression, is the chance for you to portray a memorable moment of impression. I like that person, I like what she said, I understand it, and I think that I need to know more or learn more or work with this person. The next rung is personal. When you know enough about somebody, it can be as simple as birth dates, anniversary dates, things like that. If you know enough information about somebody to make that business interaction a little bit more personal, this is the rung where I would put the Cynthia, the bank teller example I used earlier. She knew enough about my buying behavior and my past history to offer some value. We don't all have that ability to look up on a screen in front of us what this other person is all about, or their history, or what they might do in the future. But we do have the ability to learn more about them and try to make connections that way. That's just simple relationship building. The last one is unforgettable. What are you doing to make every moment of impression with everyone you encounter unforgettable? Wow, did that person impress me when I just talked to them. You've said it. People have probably said it about you. Make sure that happens as often as possible. Wow, did that person make an impression? Moments of impression come in all forms. Look at your email signature. Listen to your phone mail message. We never listen to our own phone mail messages, do we? Listen to it. Go back and listen to it. Make sure it's up to date. It's consistent. It sounds like you. It sounds like you're smiling on the phone, right? Even contracts, proposals, those kinds of things. Is there some brand personality interjected in there? Look at all of your moments of impression, every possible way you communicate. Does it change from email to email? Do you say cheers at the end of one email and have a great day at the end of another? Make it consistent. Come up with a little signatory line yourself to make you stand out. Oh, wow. I just received a message from Amy. She always signs off that way. All right? Look at all of your possible moments of impression when you interact with others. Allison, who is the emerging dietitian of the year, said to me on the telephone, we need to strengthen our brands. As dietitians, we're not well versed at tooting our own horns. You have it up here. It doesn't always come out as smoothly as you would like here. You have the knowledge, you have the understanding, but if it isn't communicated well, then I won't get it. You're not well versed at tooting your own horn. It's not uncommon. Not uncommon for many industries. It's difficult to say how great we are. If you couch it in a way that adds value to the person that you're speaking to or interacting with, it takes the ego out of it and allows you to help them. Go ahead and toot your own horns in your own way. A visionary company is made up of 1% vision, hardly any of it, and 99% alignment. A little bit of vision, and we spend a lot of time on that piece of it. And not as much on the alignment piece in our groups. Is everybody conveying our brand message consistently? And that's the piece we need to focus on. Lastly, style. So we've talked about how do you make a strong brand? Tell the story. What was the second one? Consistency. Last one is your style. So what is your style about? Let's look at it in terms of this way. If you work for an organization, you work for what I call brand with a capital B. I use the Iowa Academy logo here as an example of, say, the company. Brand with a big B. All right? Not to belittle our contributions at all as individuals, but you are brand with a lowercase b. Because you need to stay within the guidelines, policies, laws of the brand that you work for, but you were hired because of your strong brand. So your contributions are no less than any of the branding work that's done on a corporate level. How do those two brands go together? How do you thrive? How do you become engaged? How are you passionate about that brand with a big B? The key is, if a company is like Harley and takes time to say our employees are important, it makes it a little bit easier, all right? Employees need to be recognized, and at the same time, employees need to be bringing value back to the organization. Big B and little b. So let's talk about our brands. There's a methodology out there called social style. It's been around for 50 years. I use this methodology because, quite frankly, I think it's the best out there. There are a lot of social intelligence tools. This one has been around the longest. This is the most proven. It's worked for 10 million people in 35 different countries. And again, I'm in no way affiliated with Social Style or Tracom. I use this as my tool and my resource. Analytical people tend to be serious, exacting, and logical. You've heard the term left brain, right? Driving people tend to be independent, formal, and practical. Expressive people are animated, forceful, and spontaneous. Amiable people are dependable, supportive, and open. Again, this information is on your handout. If you don't have it in front of you, you can download it off the site. Social Style and Tracom, the company behind this methodology, has said there are basically 4 different communication styles. This is not to be confused with your personality. Your personality is what happens when you're inside an elevator. Of course, now all elevators have cameras. When you're inside an elevator alone, what you do in there, what you say to yourself, all of that stuff, that's your personality. We don't need to get into that today, right? I'm not a therapist, and none of us have the time for this discussion. What your communication style is the way others observe your behavior. When that elevator door opens, and there are people out there, that's how you act. That's your communication style. How others view your behavior, what you do and what you say. If you understand that about yourself, look at your notes and then ask friends and family what they think, which communication style they think you lean toward. If you know that about yourself, but more importantly, if you can recognize these attributes in others, as you communicate them and convey your message to them, you can make a stronger impact and grow your brand that way. So here's what you look for in these 4 styles that I just discussed. A driving style, type A. Right? Faster paced, always ready to move on, controls the conversation or wants to control the conversation. Needs less information, less concerned about relationships. They're not rude, they're just direct. Not rude, just direct people. They have things to do. Work in the present time frame. Here's what I need to do today. And more formal and serious. Those are driving style people. If you exhibit these behaviors yourself, you might be a driver. If you know people who exhibit these behaviors, you need to adapt to them. Give them just the headlines. They don't want a lot of information. They want to know, they want results. Expressive style. Again, faster paced, very animated, tends to talk more, asks very few questions. Will look around and notice things. That's that spontaneity part, the shiny object syndrome, I call it, right? Oh, look, a bird just flew by the window. What were we talking about? But they're creative. Work in the future time frame. Here's what we can do next year. Here's what we can do tomorrow. Right brain people, right? Tend to act impulsively. Okay. Amiable style. We might think, oh, we're in the Midwest. We've heard, Midwest nice. When I go to the East Coast, I always remind them, it isn't true. You're just as nice on the East Coast, you happen to be more direct. We're not nicer in the Midwest, we just don't always say what we're thinking. We'll smile and nod our heads and be like, you, right? Geographically, there is still about 25%, 25%, 25%, 25% in these four categories. So you might think, well, we're all amiable in Iowa. It isn't true, and you know it isn't true. Amiable styles tend to be a little bit slower paced. We'll ask questions and want to build relationships. We're not directing, we want to ask questions. We're more agreeable and pleasant. Work in the present time frame, talking about today. Arms open, smiling, and we tend to avoid conflict. All right, the last quadrant, analytical style. Slower paced, we need time to think. We ask more questions, we'll take notes. We want more information. We're less concerned about relationships. We're above the line, you'll see task. We're more about task than people. So these people are more task, more people. If you're over here, you're more ask and you're more tell. Less concerned about relationships. We work in an historical time frame. What did we do last time? How did that work? And we're more formal and serious. This is a very quick overview of a much deeper subject, but you get a feel for how to connect with other people. Look for some of the, if you see a driver, you only have a few minutes or a few seconds, and you need to get to the headlines. If you're talking to an expressive, you might need to grab a cup of coffee and talk about the weekend first. If you're talking to an amiable, you want to talk about what's in it for the team, for the good of the group. Relationships are key. If you're talking to an analytical, they want the facts, they want the research. They want you to direct them to a website or to hand them some of the tools or research that you have. Pretty simple in concept, and over time you'll get used to understanding these styles and how you can connect your brand to theirs. And remember, it's all about their style, not yours. You have to throw your communication style out the window to meet the needs of the people that you're talking to. Analytical style, real quick overview, and again, this is in your handout. The need is to be right. We want to be right as an analytical. We want the right decision. So our orientation is to think. Our backup, that's if we're pushed too far. I need an answer by tomorrow. Our backup is to withdraw. Forget it. I can't do this. I need more time or I just can't do it. And our growth opportunity is to declare a stance. We need to do this. More decisive. Driving style. Their need is for results. So to do that, they need to take action. So when you're talking to a driving style person, what's in it for them as far as getting results to what they need? They want to take action. What are you going to do for me? How is this going to happen? Their backup, if you push them, fine, I'll do it myself. Or I'll get someone else who will do it for me. Right? Not being rude, they're being direct. I need to get this done. It's not about you. It's not personal. I need to get this done. Their growth action is to actively listen. Not just listen, but really pay attention and listen. That's our growth style as a driver. I need to stop and listen to people I'm dealing with. Expressive style, we want personal approval. We want people to recognize our contributions. Our orientation is spontaneity. And again, we're the creative, fast-paced idea people. Our backup is to attack is a strong word, let's say vent. Right? If you're dealing with an expressive, you'll know because you ask them maybe how their weekend is, and it's, oh, this, and this. You let them go ahead and express them. Right? They'll get over it and go on to the next thing. They don't hold a grudge. Their growth is to check their behavior. Maybe I better stop before I say this, because I like to just say stuff and say what I'm thinking. Maybe I better to check my behavior. Amiable style. We want personal security. We want to be secure in our surroundings, in our friends, in our network. Our orientation is toward building relationships. Our backup, if we're pushed too far, will be the person in the meeting that will just go along with the flow. Okay, I don't know if I really agree with this, but if the rest of the group does. So our growth opportunity then is to initiate our will more. Make what we're thinking known and understood by the rest of the team of the group. So those are social styles: analytical, driving, expressive, and amiable. Okay, so the 3 keys to building your strong brand. Tell the story. Consistency? Style. You listened. You have listened. I'll leave you with a reminder that organizations don't make people great. It's the people in an organization that make that organization great. People make organizations great. I want to take a real quick moment to thank General Mills for sponsoring this presentation today. General Mills and the Bell Institute, because they're very strong believers in the fact that your brands out in the marketplace will help to educate all of the people who are bombarded by the clutter that's out there. So you're looking at a brand, right? So let's hope that next time that we meet, when I look back out at your brand, they're a little bit stronger, they're a little bit more concise, and most importantly, they're making an impact on the very important industry that you serve. Thank you very much for your time and attention. And I don't know if we have time for questions. Allison or anybody? Does anybody have a question? We have 5 minutes?
You're good.
We're good.
Yep.
Any questions? There are some mics at like every other table. Not one, huh? Oh, I see a hand. If anybody else has a question, grab a mic. Yes?
Is it on?
We're on.
Okay. So you're addressing a group or you're planning a bulletin board for your work, and you have a 25, 25, 25, 25. How do you decide which ones to?
Great, that's a great question. You can't please everybody in a meeting or in a room, but here's what you can do. If you think you have 25, 25, 25, what you can do is build an agenda or a framework for that presentation. That will help the analyticals and the drivers understand what you're going to cover in detail, and it will allow the drivers to see the headlines so that they know the presentation is going to move along and get to their needs. You can spend 5 minutes perhaps in kind of chit chat and get to know each other. That will help the expressives. And during that session, the amiables may have thoughts but will be the most quiet. You can work on, if you notice that someone in the room is not contributing or not participating, do something to draw them out. So if you think about each of those 4 quadrants, and you can't please everybody in a presentation or in a meeting, but you can think ahead about attributes that won't offend anyone else or take their time up, and at the same time help those people be involved that need either the headlines or want to be more expressive or need more information. So that's the best way to look at it, is think ahead of time about how each of those needs can be served in those 4. That help? Great. Another question? That's it, huh? Oh, I'm sorry.
Is it on? Yes. Okay. Is there any research out there that indicates professions as far as those 4 quadrants?
Oh, that's
So
great.
I'm dealing with a bunch of doctors, and
Yes, there is.
that's all I'm saying.
Say no more, say no more. It's interesting with doctors, primarily, at least from a professional standpoint, they need to be drivers, right? So it's always headlines, it's always fast. Doesn't mean they are personally. I do have information by industry on communication styles and behavior. Shoot me an email, dday@brandtender.com, and I'll send you what I know from TRACOM. They've done a really good job of looking at industry, and they update it every year or every 2 years. And that will help you get a sense for how doctors, in fact, I'm curious to see myself. I would say they're much higher on the task side, so they're analytical / driver, information, and headlines, and you don't have a lot of time with them, right? Anybody else? Yes?
I think we could even break doctors down into surgeons versus pediatricians.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. I'll find out how deep the research goes. Good point. Good point. All right, enjoy the rest of your time, and I know you have a great conference lined up, and I'm just so excited to be able to have been a small part of it. Thank you very much.